Our scripture this morning is from Old Testament. Zechariah 9:9. Rejoice, rejoice, people of Zion. Shout for joy, your people of Jerusalem. Look, your king is coming to you. He comes triumphant and victorious, but humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Bless this reading, and may you bless the words that are given this morning. I am a. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? How many women do we have? How many males do we have? Okay. How many grandparents do we have? Let's see, what can I ask? What was that? Great, oh, yes, and great-great-grandparents. What a wonderful blessing. Let's find out what I was talking about in the name of the message today. How many of our children, or grandchildren, or great-grandchildren have ever participated in the Christmas play and been given the part of the donkey? Not a big part, not an important part, not a beautiful part. Wrong. It's a great part. And they would stand up there, you know, I am a donkey, shaggy and brown. You never had to listen. I carried his mother uphill and down here to Bethlehem town. I am a donkey, shaggy and brown. People think of donkeys as dumb, stubborn. Do you have friends like this? And beast of burden. Granted, they're beast of burdens. If you've ever been out west or over to the Holy Lands, you have seen the donkeys, either with people riding on them or them carrying supplies. If you've been out west, you'll see them going up the path, up the mountain, and you go, I don't know if I would do that. That's a long way down there. But not to worry. Donkeys are very sure-footed. They can walk through the most rugged terrain that there is. They have excellent eyesight. They can see paths that other humans can't. They also can go down those paths if they've been down them once before without being led. That's no dumb donkey. They also have keen sight and smell and excellent hearing. If only our husbands would have that. They can spot around here. The biggest time for them to spot is hunting season. And they're not pointing to the deer, they're pointing to the hunters who want to kill the deer. You always know where the hunters are when it's deer season. They have really become kind of in the spotlight lately. Farmers and ranchers are using them as guard donkeys. They watch over the sheep, they watch over the goats, they watch over what beast that they are guarding. It's said that they have the strength of a workhorse, and they've been known to kill coyotes, fox, and even mountain lions. I guess they do have the strength of a draft horse. The word donkey has only been used since 1785. Before that time, the word ass was used in written and verbal conversation. Once it was commonly used as bad slang, the word donkey became more acceptable. To be truthful, every one of us have probably said sometimes in our life, well, that dumb donkey. You must be thinking, where is she going with this? Let's talk about the Bible. Donkeys were mentioned and used throughout both the New Testament and the Old Testament. They are only one of the two creatures that God allowed to speak. The first being that doggone snake, the second being the donkey. And that was all in Old Testament. At first, only rich and those in power, such as judges, rode donkeys. In other words, they rode, the commoner walked. When the common folks started to ride donkeys, the rich thought, well, I can't be riding the same donkeys they're riding. So they chose to ride only white donkeys. They even decided, well, they would breed their white donkeys so they would have plenty. Their whole family could have white donkeys. But they never succeeded. They got white donkeys with gray spots. I think that was kind of apropos. As horses became available, because horses were always used in wartime, as they were used for war, or they became older, or the rich had the money to buy one off the top of the pile, they rode horses. The common folk continued to ride the donkeys, and they didn't care what color they were. It's a traditional belief that Joseph, husband of Mary, had a donkey. And that donkey is what Mary rode to Bethlehem. Or Jesus' first donkey ride. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John record Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem as fulfillment of prophecy. And we just did those. We read them. When Jesus and his disciples arrived at the outskirts of Jerusalem, they stopped. And Jesus asked only two of them, go into the next village, find a donkey that is tied with her colt beside her. In that time, donkeys weren't usually tied. They just wandered around. So the two disciples thought, well, this might get a little iffy, but we'll go. The first village they came to, they found a donkey tied to someone's door. And beside the donkey was her colt. They returned to Jesus with that donkey and with that colt. Immediately the disciples put their cloaks over the donkeys. Jesus surprisingly took the foal, who had never been ridden. That could have been disastrous. He got upon the little donkey, and that donkey never balked. It never balked at his weight. It never balked at the crowds yelling and laying down their cloaks and their palm branches. Jesus, riding on the donkey, did not present him as a poor, common man. Remember, the old scripture said that he would be riding as a king on a donkey. He was a king. He was a humble king of peace. And that played into him choosing to ride a donkey, because donkeys were associated with peace, while horses were associated with war. If you ever, well, we all have seen the old MGM biblical movies, and they all had the wonderful, beautiful horses. You didn't see too much of the donkeys, but boy, you saw those horses. May we be like Christ's donkeys, patiently waiting for his touch. Do we trust our Master and work willingly for him? Do we live our lives in gentleness and peace? Do we guard and protect the sheep of God's pasture? Are we sure-footed enough that we can ignore the warning signs of a bad situation and not get into it? Do we guard and protect the sheep of God's pasture? As you know, we have donkeys, special donkeys. Thousands of years ago, when Jesus rode that colt of the donkey into Jerusalem, that colt that had never been ridden, when Jesus got upon him, never balked. He must have trusted Jesus. He must have loved Jesus. Well, he proved that love because he followed Christ all the way to Calvary. And when he came across the crucifixion site, the donkey was so upset. He just couldn't bear what his heart was feeling. He was grief-stricken, and he turned his back. He turned away. The shadow of the cross fell upon his back. From that day on, those donkeys bear the cross on their back. We are reminded daily of Christ's crucifixion because our donkeys are special donkeys. They have crosses on their backs. Recently and suddenly, we lost our youngest donkey, Sweet Jenny. We don't know what happened. It happened within such a short span of time. I guess Sweet Jenny must have wanted to be with her master. After all, it's almost Easter. By the way, Sweet Jenny was Bob's buddy. So Bob is having to adjust to some donkeys that are a little less devilish than Sweet Jenny. Can we learn from those donkeys? Do we trust our master and work willingly for him? Do we live our lives in meekness, gentleness, and peace? Do we stand guard over the sheep of God's pasture? And are we sure-footed enough and know the path that we ignore warnings, that we don't ignore warning signs and get into situations we should not?